Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Kleiner.
Mrs. Castillo?
Here.
Mrs. Feldman?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Major?
Here.
Mr. McCarter?
Here.
Mrs. Silverman?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here. 3.0 tonight, special recognitions. Dr. Malia.
Good evening, Board President Mr. Davis, Vice President Mr. Major, Board members, and Mrs. Calando. As Superintendent of Parkway, it is an honor and privilege to acknowledge and to thank our Parkway Board of Education for their work, loyalty, dedication, and leadership for the Parkway School District. In the state of Missouri, the week of January 24th through the 30th has been identified as School Board Recognition Week. Parkway is pleased to honor its school board members for volunteering their time and energy to provide the best education possible for our 19,000 students. Your dedication to students, our school district, and your personal commitment of time earn you this acknowledgement this evening. Approximately 1 year ago, we initiated our historic long-term strategic plan called Project Parkway. That evening, this Board of Education endorsed it and fully supported it. The mission, the current mission of the Parkway School District is to reach and teach each student, all students every day together. In 2006, you passed Prop R with our citizens. In 2008, you passed Prop S with our citizens. And as mentioned, on November 13th, 2008, you approved our work with Grant Wiggins and our Project Parkway endeavor. This Board of Education works hard each day to make our goals and that mission a reality every day for our students and our staff. At this time, different members of the Superintendent's administrative team will present a special certificate to each board member with a small gift to show our acknowledgement. We want to begin with President Mr. Davis and ask Dr. Bonnie Maxey to come forward. Vice President Bruce Major and Mr. Desi Kirchhofer would come forward, please. Board Member Helen Castillo and Mrs. Mary Muckler will come forward. Board Member Beth Feldman and Mrs. Kathy Blackmore would come forward, please. Board Member Chris Jacob and Dr. Steve Colombo will come forward, please. Traditions. Board Member Dudley McCarter and Mr. Wes Garden will come forward. Board Member Dee Mogerman and Mr. Paul Tandy will come forward. At this time, if we could ask the total board to come forward here in front of the stage, we'd like to get a picture of you for our website. Thank you very much, and again, thank you for your work for our students, staff, and our communities. We honor you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. 4.0 additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. I believe we have two this evening, Dr. Maria.
Yes, we added a personnel item of resignation, and we added 11.01, an emergency repair, the purchase of new boiler tubes at South Middle School.
Okay, thank you. Uh, 5.0 citizen statements. This evening there are none. 6.0 call for a closed session is none. 7.0 approval of agenda for January 13th, 2010. Can I have a motion and second, please, to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 8.0 resolutions. This evening we have three resolutions. Race to the Top program, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on January 18th, and School Board Recognition Week, January 25th through 30th. A motion and second, please, to approve these three resolutions.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.0 communications. 9.01 calendar of meetings. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, January 27th, 2010, at Central Middle School at 7:30 p.m.
Okay, Mr. President, I'd like to note that there will be two open seats at the April election for the school board, your seat and Mr. McCarter's. And at this point, there are two candidates have signed up, and if they'd like to stand up and be recognized, Mr. Tom Applebaum and Sam Sorrentino. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here this evening.
And also note, Mr. President, that the sign-up period will close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 19th for those seats.
Very good. 9.02 liaison reports. Does anyone have a liaison report this evening?
I know myself fine. I, together with Mrs. Castile, this past Monday, January 4th, attended here in this room the Technology by Design program that was put on by a joint effort, Liz Morrison and the TIS group, and it was dedicated to teachers, middle school teachers of social studies, science, gifted, ESOL, and foreign language. It was a really energetic and enthusiastic group, and there were many breakout sessions, and afternoon and morning sessions, and then there were full day sessions. And in the middle of it, we had lunch, and we had a really great panel with students, six middle school students. Most of them were offspring of Parkway employees, which was really great. And they gave some surprising answers to some questions. So I think it reminds us we still always need to keep the focus on what the kids think, because they're, especially with technology, they really know what direction to go in. And I attended 3 different breakout sessions: digital storytelling, Google everything, and Smart Notebook. And I just got so much out of them, and the teachers were fabulous. They all brought lesson plans, and they were working their lesson plans through the technology. And I think that everybody that attended got a lot out of it, and thanks to Liz and to the
Yeah, just following up with that, I'd like to just thank Liz Morrison, Tom Swoboda, Kathy Blackmore, Susan Petroff, and anyone else that had anything to do with the Professional Development Conference. It was very interesting, informative, and the session that I attended had to do with science and how integrating technology with science, creating virtual experiments, and fair testing. Mr. Dan Tripp was the leader of that workshop. I also want to thank him.
Mr. President, just before we broke for the holidays, I had 2 activities that I got to be part of. One was the West Middle School band concert for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and it's my hats off to those teachers. It takes a lot of patience to teach a number number of kids that maybe are just learning, but they do a great job, and the kids actually, you can recognize the numbers, and they do a pretty good job. By the time they're in the 8th grade, they're really pretty good. So my hat's off to those teachers that do that. Music's an important part of what we do here, and I think it helps some of them even with their math scores. Hopefully it'll help my little guy in the 7th grade. The other thing is I attended probably one of the best Christmas breakfasts in Parkway up at ISC, and as they finished their year, and there's some very talented people in our math department and others that know how to sing and put a lot of these acronyms to, I don't know if that's anywhere where it's recorded, but it ought to be done many times. I appreciate what they do, and that was a fun morning and some awfully good cooks too. Thank you very much.
I also attended the holiday breakfast at ISC, another fun event, and also I think it was the same day, the holiday lunch at the administration building, which was once again packed in that little room, but it was a lot of fun to see us.
All right, thank you. 10.0, action items consent. Mr. Major.
10.01, approval of minutes, regular December 9, 2009. 10.02, approval of personnel matters. 10.03, approval of checks and wire transfers for the weeks of December 11, 18, 24, 31, 2009, and January 8, 2010. 10.04, approval of financial report, November 2009. 10.05, approval of bids, quotations, and agreements. A, Fern Ridge High School, easement for water company. B, facilities operations building, one-time purchase of engineering scanner, copier, plotter. C, public address parts and service contract. D, purchase of fence parts. E, purchase of custodial dispensers. F, purchase of bus heaters and timers. G, purchase of culinary lab equipment and supplies. 10.06, acceptance of gifts, none. 10.07, approval of professional services. Various consultants from Authentic Education, Dr. Grant Wiggins, Authentic Education, and Public Education and Business Coalition. 10.08, approval of BDD.VP, Board Superintendent Relations. 10.09, approval of BDE.VP, Board Committees. 10.10, approval of BDF.VP and G, Advisory Committees. 10.11, approval of BDFB.VP, St. Louis Parent Advisory Council. 10.12, approval of BE.VP and G, School Board Meetings. 10.13, approval of BED.VP, closed meetings, records, and votes. 10.14, approval of BEEA.VP, notification of board meetings. 10.15, approval of BEED.VP, agenda. 10.16, approval of BEEF.VP, voting method. 10.17, approval of BEEG.VP, minutes. 10.18, approval of BEEH.VP, public participation. 10.19, approval of BEEI.VP, news coverage. 10.20, approval of NetTrekker database subscription. 10.21, approval of local long-distance telephone service. 10.22, approval of SSE classroom rental contract for 2009-2010. And 10.23, approval of umbrella liability insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Can I have a motion and second, please, to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Are there any items that need to be pulled to action or closed?
I would just like to talk a little bit about C, 10.05C.
the exception of 10.05C and 10.21, we have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Mr. President, I'm abstaining from those checks under 10.03 that I advised Ms. Calanda. Voting in the affirmative on all the others.
So on those items, the motion carries 6-0-1, and on the balance, 7-0. 10.05C, Public Address Parts and Services Contract.
Scott, you're going to come
Scott.
forward? Okay, thank you. Mike, okay.
Scott, you've already seen my email probably, and I just, I think of primary systems and the situation we're in this economy. $100 an hour just seems awfully high to me. Even though I know we're not using them for service a lot. If we go back and ask them, sharpen your pencil, these are extraordinary times. $100 an hour seems quite a bit to come in and work on a public address system.
I can go back and ask them. It's $100 an hour, but it's as I said in my email, it's the way they bill is just for their service time, serviceman in the field. If there's any engineering that's required on top of that, secretarial, accounting, all of that's included in that $100 an hour. So it's not like if we have a problem, he has to go back and talk to engineering. They're going to bill us for the engineering time too. It's just for the technician's time. So it's more of a it's more of an analogy to, for example, a doctor's always ready to bill you for the doctor's time, but not for the clerical help or things like that. But I can certainly go back and talk to them.
I'm just thinking these are times in which we have an opportunity. I'm both a vendor and a customer, and I get pushed both ways all the time.
I can certainly go back and talk to them.
All right, maybe.
Okay.
Let's see, so I'd like a motion out, but is that a motion to table this item?
Yes, I would like to suggest that we take the settlement and compare with 27.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of tabling 10.05C until the 27th?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. So we'll bring that back to the next meeting. 10.21, approval of local long distance survey meeting.
Mr. President, I'm just abstaining from the vote. I'm abstaining from the vote on 10.2. I notified Mr. Calanda earlier. I didn't have any questions.
Well then, I guess we'll officially declare abstention once we have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion.
Clarification or
I
so
think
that
they're
doesn't get much easier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Very eloquent. That carries 6-0-1. 10.21. That brings us to 11.01, action items, individual. Purchase of new boiler tube, which is called for in your meeting. Dr. Melito?
I'm going to have Mike Mertens come forward. What we have is a situation at South Middle where we believe some emergency repair work needs to take place in the next 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks on their boiler system. And so we're asking permission tonight for the board to review this. If you agree to make a motion for us to go forward, we would appreciate it. But Mike will answer questions.
Maybe we can just start with a brief description.
Give you a summary of the situation. At the end of winter break, the New Year, about January 1st, we ran into a situation, but one of the boilers at South Middle, we have two, and we found that we had some leaking tubes in that boiler. And because of the very cold weather, we had Systemair come out, who's our service contractor, and they went in and found 2 leaking tubes. So we acquired 6 tubes because we didn't know what we were going to run into, because as we opened it up, the tube sheet was very rusted and it looked like it was going to possibly need more than that done. We replaced 2 tubes, put it back together, and we had another tube fail, and then we took it apart and put the tube in and put it back together, had another tube fail. And we've used all 6 tubes now, and we still have another tube that's failed, and we use all the tubes that are in St. Louis. Now, the reason that we're concerned is that both of the boilers are put in at the same time, and they're the same type of boilers. One is running fine. The school ran on one boiler all through the very, very cold freeze we just had with no complications. But we're not slated to replace those boilers until 2012. Now, the question was, can we do that earlier? We can. The problem is we're doing $20 million worth of work. It is now January to get a design, to get that design out for bid. It's going to be pushing it, and we really don't think we can get that work done through process for the summer. So, talking with my new maintenance manager, Dean Rhodes, we said, we have 2 boilers here. One's running fine. Of course, we think the tubes are questionable because they both went at the same time. So why don't we retube the one we're working on now? The boiler's fine, it just needs to be retubed. That gives us 1 solid boiler. Now we're going to worry about any tubes going out. We'll run both boilers. If we have issues with the other boiler, we can plug a tube here, we can plug a tube there, we can keep it running. But we'll have 1 good boiler to get us through to 2012. We need those boilers 12 months a year because those boilers are on a system that they're used for reheat during the summer to take humidity out of the air at South Middle. So it's not like something we can't take them down there. Sometimes they run all the time. We feel very comfortable if we retube the boiler we're working on right now. We'll use the other one then for parts as we move through. We've proven that we can run in -2-degree weather with 1 boiler. We're comfortable with the way the system's running, and then in 2012, our plan is to come in and replace the boilers, the pumps, and the piping as part of the project that was already on the bond issue and planned to be done in 2012. Just wish we could have gotten 2 more years out of the boilers, and we would have been right on the money is what we had planned on the bond issue, but so we're looking to buy the tubes. Now, the tubes will have to be made. There are no more in St. Louis as we speak. They will be active manufactured. And I asked Dr. Melito can we move this quickly so that I can get the quotes done, get the tubes made, and then get the tubes in with our people instead of the service contractor to save us a bunch of money in as quickly as time as possible. So that's what but if we waited until next meeting, 2 weeks to come forward with this, we're losing 2 weeks and we're in the middle of it. So we're just trying to stay proactive and in front of this and get that boiler retubed as quickly as possible to head off any possible problem that could affect South Florida.
So, I have a couple of questions. There's no warranty or any other...
No, these are I believe these are the original boilers. They're old boilers.
And then the replacement of the tubes, could that possibly offer us an opportunity to extend the timeline? I mean, I know we budgeted money.
No, they're old boilers. Basically, it's an old system. If you were to go down to South Middle, it looks like a very old system. We got some rusting pipe. Actually, we have a lot of rusting pipe. It's more than just replacing the boilers. We're going to replace all the piping, the pumps, and the boiler system, and bring that up to probably 2010.
Significant energy.
Exactly right. We'll go with high-efficiency boilers, and the system will be far better when we get done with it. So we're just looking for a stopgap measure here for 2 years to get us to 2012. That will allow us to not change the summer school schedule, and we've been working very hard to set that and keep it going so that we don't impact Bonnie, Maxie, and Mike Cosgrove's plans on the summer school side of things.
Mike, are these tubes, boiler tubes, are they unique to that boiler? There aren't any other boilers in, like these wouldn't be redundant ones that we have for...
No, they are unique to the boiler. They are unique to that style boiler, and like I said, there were 6 in St. Louis. Generally, I guess, as you get into a boiler repair, a lot of times you'll pop a tube and you replace 1 or 2. These are in such bad shape that as we were replacing them, bring the pressure back up, another tube would fail. And once we went through all of the tubes that we had, we said, okay, we're not comfortable with this boiler, and we're also not comfortable with the other boiler because it's the same age. And we don't want to have that the same problem start over there, so we're just trying to really get out in front of it.
Question? Now, just to clarify, because I'm trying to follow the notes in what you said, Mike. You got two boilers, and one is okay, but the other one is the tubes just keep they're non-functioning.
Yeah, the tubes continue to basically they break under pressure, and so then we have
how
to replace
often
the
is
tube.
that?
Pardon me?
How often is that?
As we've been going through this process, it's been every time we put a new tube in, another one breaks. So that basically passed the useful life of the boiler. I don't know if that boiler is 30 years old. I'm not exactly sure what the age is, but it's an old boiler that's been down there.
Okay, but the tubes are not functioning. How often though? You put a tube in
Because they're rusted.
How
long?
How long?
Basically, when we button it back up and pressurize it, another tube breaks. It's that fast.
When's the last time before this you had to replace the
That's
tubes?
what I'm
Oh.
getting at. How long
Gotcha.
how long are those tubes when you put them in? Do they?
Well, when we put these tubes in, they'll probably last 15 or 20 years.
Not the new ones, but the ones
The old
that
ones?
you've been putting in. How long after you put them in? How long has it been before something happens to those?
Oh, the new tubes we're putting in are fine. It's the existing tubes that are in the unit that when we replace one of the bad tubes, another old tube breaks.
Are they original? The
Yes.
existing tubes are
Yes.
original?
So it's the original tubes. We've never really done anything to this boiler.
Okay.
We've never retubed the boiler in the past that I'm aware of.
So, what about the other if the tubes on one are not functioning well? What about the other boiler?
Well, that's what we're worried about. The other boiler is operating fine today, but because it's the same age and it's seen the same conditions, we're concerned that we could have the same problem with boiler number 2.
Okay, so you're anticipating and wanting to replace the tubes on both boilers? No, just the one?
Because we can operate so successfully on one boiler, and we were able to demonstrate that, and to save money, we're only planning on retubing one boiler because we're planning on then replacing the other two in 2012. So what we want to do is get one boiler functioning very well, and then the second we'll just nurse along then. But we'll know
Okay,
that
and
we're
how
in
many
good shape.
tubes then to replace, and what is the cost?
88 tubes in a boiler, approximately 200. We're going to be going out for quotes tomorrow, but the ones that we did buy were approximately $290 a tube, almost $300.
So we don't have any of this type of boiler in any other school?
Oh, that I don't know for a
Well,
fact.
my thought was, is it possible we can save these tubes and reuse them in the future if 2 years down the road we scrap the boilers? We have, I don't know. I just hate to.
I'd have to take a look to see if we did have the same type of boiler where we could, and if the tubes are reusable. Depending on how the installation process goes, they may or may not be reusable.
Chances are, if they're that old, we probably can't.
That's right. Generally, we've been trying to replace all of our older equipment to more higher efficiency units.
Mike, is the bottom line, we're trying to do as-needed repair in order to nurse these two boilers along until the summer of 2012, when we have to redo the complete system.
Yeah, what we're really trying to do is give us one good, solid unit at South Middle to get us through to 2012.
I think the other part the board would like you to try to do is that these tubes that we buy, approximately 88 of them, 2 years from now in the summer of 2012, could we attempt to save some of the tubes if they could be usable in one of the old boiler systems somewhere within Parkway?
Yep, that would definitely be something we want to look at.
And what is the approximate cost of a new boiler? Do you have any idea?
The total project that we have on the books right now for 2012, and this is for two boilers, piping, and pumps, is almost $300,000.
Mike, is our staff going to be overly taxed by having to do this big project?
No,
Or they can accommodate?
no, we're very comfortable doing this with a couple of our technicians. Dean sees no problem at all with our folks doing this.
Any further questions? Mr. Mertens. A motion and second, please, that the Board of Education approve a maximum of $30,000 for the purchase of 2 for Southland School Board System.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Brings us to 12.0 report, 12.01 Project Parkway update. Jennifer Sissel.
Good evening. Well, good evening, everyone. President Davis, Dr. Melito, Mrs. Calanda, and members of the board, I am very proud to be standing here before you with an update on the most comprehensive and complex project I have ever been involved in, and certainly one with the most exciting possibilities for the students of Parkway. Project Parkway is different. That is the message I tout as I am out and about working with groups, informing teachers, and supporting schools in the work. Tonight, I will provide you with an overview and update information on the timelines of Project Parkway, the needs assessment process we find ourselves in right now, our dedicated volunteers, and our outside consultants. This busy timeline is one that you have seen before. It outlines the work of the 3 parallel structures of Project Parkway, beginning with our steering committee in the red, our goal committee, and then the work of our schools. The work of the steering committee continues to be to lead the work around building the foundation of our house. Our mission is what we are in the business to achieve. Our vision is what it will look like when mission is accomplished. Over the course of the winter and spring, we will be taking the mission, the vision, and learning principles on test drives around the district. The yellow boxes that you see indicate where work will be done on these pieces of the house, and the blue boxes indicate where we will be reviewing the work with different groups looking for more voices to add to the process. Our goal is to bring to you, the board, a mission, vision, and a set of learning principles that everyone in Parkway has had the opportunity to feed into. Running parallel to the work of the steering committee are the work of the 3 goal committees, and hang on, our 30 subcommittees. Their work of this year is to study and determine current reality of our 30 key questions that were gleaned from our current goals and focus areas. We are in the needs assessment or audit phase of Project Parkway. We are looking at multiple data sources in order to gain the most accurate picture of current reality around the 30 questions that have been posed as part of the project. So what you can see up here are the different types of data that we're collecting. Our student learning and performance data, which could include standardized testing, norm and criterion reference tests, teacher observations, and so forth. Demographic data is being studied, perceptual data from stakeholder perspectives and attitudes, as well as school process data. We are gathering this data through multiple venues, including traditional surveys, site visits, off-site visits, research, student interviews, administrator interviews, and town hall meetings. You can follow the work of the 30 subcommittees at the Project Parkway website. On May 16th, we will provide an update on the areas of identified need that are arising from the work of the subcommittees. These areas of need will be submitted to the steering committee for further discussion, possibly more data gathering, and the difficult work of prioritizing will begin. The goal committees will take a brief break during this phase of the work and regroup again in January of 2011. So this slide goes back to what we talked about last spring and even before that as far as the structure of Project Parkway. Just a reminder that our focus areas then are broken up into our subcommittees. Project Parkway is different. We will impact business as usual because our administrators have made a commitment to bring the work to their setting. A strand of administrator development has evolved that mirrors the work of the steering committee, thereby bringing the logic of mission, vision, and learning principles to our buildings and our departments. While the work of mission and vision is being spearheaded by the steering committee level, our administrators, both certified and classified, have joined together to get clear about what Parkway believes about how students learn. These learning principles that you can see here above our mission and vision are currently in draft form, and these will add a second layer to our house so that we can then say, in the words of Grant Wiggins, if this is our mission and this is what it looks like in practice, and this is what we believe in Parkway about the way that people learn, then this is what it means for curriculum and assessment and instructional design and on up the house. And we can also say, if this is what we believe and this is what you are doing, nothing personal, but you're not helping us achieve mission. This bottom red layer that you see is grouped together on purpose. We have to have conversations around what we are in the business of achieving and the best way to get there, to build the foundation. We will bring to the board a mission, vision, and learning principles for approval on June 16th. Thanks to the support of the board, we are also able to provide intense professional development for our teachers in Grant Wiggins' curriculum design framework, Backwards Design. Parkway staff will again have the opportunity to attend our large Understanding by Design Institutes this summer, and administrators will work with Dr. Wiggins again in June. We also look forward to Dr. Wiggins supporting the steering committee as well, with 2 visits scheduled for this semester. Project Parkway is different, and no artifact speaks so loudly as to the reach of the project than the sheer size of the project. A steering committee of 35, goal and focus area leaders numbering 24, and subcommittee leaders adding another 40 staff, and then toss in 300 volunteers, and you have an impressive pool of people working together for the best interests of Parkway students. Another all-call will be put out this spring to recruit new volunteers as we enter phase 2 of the work next year. Project Parkway is different because it has to be different. In her new book, Curriculum 21, Essential Education for a Changing World, Heidi Hayes Jacobs poses these questions. What year are you preparing your students for? Can you honestly say that your school's curriculum and programs are preparing students for 2015? Are you even preparing them for today? Thanks to the board, we are able to hold our head high and not shy away from those questions, and we can stare them down and say, you know what, we will tackle these and we will do things differently to prepare our students. So I thank you very much for your support. I would like now to ask if there are questions, ideas, things that I can take back to the steering committee and the goal and focus area leaders.
Jennifer, how are we doing?
We are doing well. We are doing well.
We're on task.
We are very on task. I have to say that the work right now of our needs assessment, that has really taken on a life of its own. Again, we have 30 committees out there doing very intense, I would say, data collection. I think most exciting is the work of our school walks and having folks out in the buildings, working together with community members, teachers, and goal and focus area leaders to create these look-fors. What should we be seeing? If we're talking about furniture to support a 21st century curriculum, what should we be seeing? And then going through and taking a look at what the current reality is. We have a very aggressive timeline that we have put out there, and we had some discussion on Monday about monitoring that and making sure that we can honor our benchmarks and still get to our goal of bringing a package to the board, if you will, of here's where we think we are in December of 2010, and we're feeling pretty good about that. So it's aggressive and it's moving quickly, and I'm just proud of the folks that are working on it.
So we haven't lost anybody yet. We're along the way.
Yeah, we've lost some folks along the way. Yeah, and you know, I could ask Nikki Stover for how many folks have just said, you know what, thank you, this is a lot more than I kind of had bargained for. And we have had a few folks do that. We've had a few folks who have also said, I can't attend, but can you send me things? Or I can't attend, but can I still give my feedback? So we're having different kinds of participation as far as that goes.
I guess my question would kind of leverage off that and your indisputable assertion that Project Parkway is different. It's contemplating a lot of change, and change in any organization is a challenge, to say the least. How would you assess the initial buy-in? There will be hard cases in any circumstance.
You know, I
figure
think
it's the same routine. We've done this before, and it's not going anywhere.
Right, and I think
how would you respond to that?
I would say I would honor that absolutely. We have gone through processes like these before. I would question or I would put forward the comprehensive nature of Project Parkway and how, again, I'm going to put up our 3 lines there of these 3 different pieces going through, and really what's not up there, and now that you said that out loud, I'm thinking about the work in our classrooms with our teachers who are redesigning the way that they do business as well. That should probably be another line up there. So when I look at those 3 lines, plus with the work that our teachers are doing, that's another thing that I would put forward as why it is different. As far as the buy-in to Project Parkway, what I think is exciting is that I'm hearing about it more and more. And as I'm out and about, I'm hearing people who aren't connected to the projects saying, at the very least, aren't we talking about that in Project Parkway? Isn't that happening in Project Parkway? And so those words, we're hearing those words more and more. Now, I will say it's raising angst. Absolutely. People know that there's changes afoot, and you cannot look at our 30 questions and not go, ooh, this is different. There are some sacred cows, possibly, that we could be tackling. So I would say the angst is there. A healthy angst. How's that?
Constructive angst.
Constructive angst.
Well, I guess the only thing I'd add on that front is certainly in the classrooms, and I think as Grant touched on in one of his early presentations, you know a district gets it when the school bus drivers,
absolutely,
custodians,
right,
and all the support staff understand where they fit.
Absolutely.
In that vision.
And I think that's another thing.
And that's really the leadership challenge right there.
And I think,
conveying that in
right,
100 different ways.
And it speaks to the buy-in from the administrative level as we move forward, to have Will Rosa invite me to speak to the bus drivers as part of their opening meeting and talk to them. I put the house up. And I talked to them about where we're going with the house. And it was a great meeting because one of the bus drivers' questions was, when are you going to tackle student behavior on the bus? And I looked at the house and I thought, oh, where? And another bus driver turned around and said, well, it's up at the top. We start talking about policies and, just having those conversations. So I think that having both sides of Parkway, classified and certified, working together in our administrator development together, having our directors and managers there with our principals, again, another thing that I think makes a difference.
Can I just say, looking behind you, I didn't see the new coach bag make its appearance tonight.
It's here. It's in the back.
Oh, okay. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Jennifer, for taking on this gargantuan task. And it's the first time I've used that word. But everything just seems to be going so well. It's coordinated so well. I do have a question on the mission statement. Just briefly, who is involved in the mission statement? How far is it coming along? Has it been finalized? And if not,
let me go.
Where are we on that?
You know what, Mrs. Castillo, I'm going to go back to this right here and give you some history on the mission, because it really was the first part of the house that had to be tackled. And Dr. Wiggins started that with the steering committee. I have 35 people on there, teachers, administrators, school-based and non-school-based, as well as classified, Board of Education, community members, having those conversations around what are we in the business to achieve. We put out an initial draft on May 18th for that first Project Parkway meeting, so that first draft was by the steering committee. It was then posted on the website, and we have an open input so people can be feeding information into the website. And we went back again as a steering committee, and we did work on our Moodle site and did some conversation on the Moodle between the steering committee members about here's what we're hearing, here's what we think, and trying to do some work there. And I'll tell you, that hasn't worked for us very well. We have done better face-to-face, and we have done better working with groups and hearing from schools about, well, here's what we think. North High had an incredible faculty meeting, and Jenny Marquardt, bless her heart, typed up all the comments and synthesized the comments and sent those up to Nikki to post. So we're now beginning to hear more from schools and from groups about mission. The steering committee, though, I do ask the steering committee to give the final, okay to post a new draft. So we had draft 2 come out, I'm looking at D, in August, and then we went forward with draft 3 there in October. And so it does funnel through the steering committee, but now that we're in the process, we're kind of each bringing our perspective from the different groups that we're talking with, and also looking at the website and gleaning from the community as well.
I do have draft mission number 3 in front of me, so that's one
Good.
reason I'm asking is to see if this is still an ongoing task.
Absolutely, yes. We will bring you the final on June 16th. I would like to say that, we're close, but that draft right there has raised there's some words in there that people just can't settle on. I know what one you're talking about. I know what word you don't like.
That's right. That's why I brought that up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Dr. Wiggins comes back at the end of January, and he's got some work to do. He's got some work to do with us on that, because I'll put it out there, we weren't very happy with his version of draft 3, and so we did our own and put our own out there. So
you're still accepting
absolutely
feedback for, I'm not going to say improvement, but to rearrange some of
to take out that word? Yeah, okay. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Helen, we've talked about it before, but I think maybe I'll remind you about the process on the steering committee. It's been a real privilege for me to serve on behalf of the board on the steering committee. All we've done is spend days mincing words and getting the true meaning of words, not always agreeing with one another, but coming to a consensus. And I think what I see, and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, by calling that a mission statement, I think it's confusing people, because I think it's a mission statement and then a vision statement.
Correct.
But it doesn't say that on there.
Which
and I
one?
think
Okay.
people see all these words and they think that mission statement is too long.
Todd, can you hit that for me, please? You're absolutely right. And
So, I thought that was the direction we were going.
no, Todd, I want you to go to the link, please. Back up and. You know what? And that is a great point of clarification. And I actually have a slide that when I go out to schools and talk with schools, I show that the statement Parkway develops remarkably curious, capable, that paragraph sort of.
That's the mission.
That's the mission. And then those bullets underneath it are to give that mission some teeth as far as here's what we'll see.
That's the vision.
Yeah, and I agree. So that's what we're looking at right now. So when you scroll down, please, Todd. Yeah, those bullets. Those are what will become our vision bullets, vision statement.
I think it's a little confusing right now.
Thank you for clarifying that. I agree.
I remember early on there was a very impassioned discussion about, we know where this is headed, but we're not there yet. We're kind of in limbo land. And some of the principals wanted to pick this up and take it and run with it. I just wondered where we are with that. Are some of them kind of incorporating this now?
Oh, yeah.
Are we waiting? I just was curious.
Boy, it's you're seeing it in lots of different ways. Again, we have 29 sites. We're going to see 29 different takes on the work, but you are seeing people bring the mission to their buildings. A majority, I will say that. And they are working with the draft mission. And so our principals, I feel, recognize this is a draft. We will come out with another one, and when we do, we send it out in an all-call or something and make a big deal that we made a change. But they are using the mission in their faculty meetings. We had our PD day on January 4th. They spent time at least looking at the mission and talking about it. Some schools are also tackling what they are in the business of achieving and thinking about what is Ross Elementary in the business of achieving. To have their own conversations around mission and vision. I think what I'm hearing is a lot of folks are thinking about, the district mission, it's shaping up. We're liking that. But perhaps our work is there at the vision then. But this is what it will look like at our school. And in talking with Grant, that makes sense. So they're incorporating it in different ways. What I like to hear is when teachers just mention it and say, we talked about mission in our faculty meeting. We talked about it on our PD day with our coordinators. We're hearing it in different venues. So it is getting out there, Dee. Yeah, it's fun to hear. Beth?
It's hard for me to put this question into words. I'm a Goal 3 committed, and I have no doubt that the changes that Goal 3 is going to recommend are going to be wonderful changes. The starting time, the bus schedules, the technology piece, the construction piece. Those are hard measures. The thing I'm having trouble grasping is the work that is being done by the Project Parkway participants and how it's going to work its way into my child, her child, his child, classroom on a daily basis. And the thought that comes to my mind is I like analogies. And I can see the generals working around the table in the war room. But when these soldiers are on the ground in a war zone, are they going to be referring to what the generals told them to do, or are they going to fight the battle? That's what I'm having trouble understanding. Well, then we can publish, we can have talks with teachers, but are they really going to embrace it? Are they going to take what Project Parkway tells them to do and do it? We have a lot of teachers. I'm nervous.
And it's Bob?
I think, Jennifer, one thing that the committee's talking about is to see whether our 2,500 employees during the month of April and May would be willing to sign a piece of paper stating that they accept the mission, vision, and learning principles. This would be the first thing they kind of agree to see them and understand them. This summer, we're going to continue with our UBD and SBD, Schooling by Design, Understand by Design, this summer to get all our teachers understanding that. So those two things may begin to get a buy-in. But as you know, change within Parkway is not easy. It's typically not accepted easily. So it's going to be a very slow process that we need to get this work down to the classroom. Because Goal 1 is academic achievement. Goal 2 deals with the health and safety of our students. Goal 3 is more concrete things that when the board approves it, it will happen. But we are beginning to see buy-in literally from hundreds of people. But you got to realize we have 2,500 employees in Parkway, so we're going to spend the next 1 month to maybe 7 months working on this. Again, some of the things you're talking about will not come in until the fall of 2011. So literally, we have some time to begin to explain, communicate, have them understand, and then hopefully agree to buy into this process to improve teaching, which means the learning for students. So we know that's a process we have to go through.
And if I could add, a mentor of mine said, why are you doing it? Is it really going to crack the schoolhouse door? Are you really thinking about, is this going to crack the door? And I said, well, yes, it is. And it gets you thinking. It really does get you thinking. And we put the house back up because this, again, to me, is something that makes it different. This is the filtering system. And when we see this house at the district level, well, the way I've been talking to schools and to teachers, I'll take something that's going on in their school, one-to-one computing, and computing, something like that, and we'll talk about how a decision would be made based upon mission, vision, and learning principles, and helping people understand that this is coming, and this will be a way that we make decisions. What I'm seeing in our schools is our principals are referring to the house as well, and helping their staff come along, getting very clear about this is our mission. How is that going to support our mission? And at least having those opening conversations. And again, I think that those 3 timelines, Beth, I really in my heart feel like we have a process going that is bringing people along. I agree, though, Dr. Molino, it's hard, and people are, I think, sure, waiting to see if this is going to go away. But at the same time, we're doing all three of these timelines. We have our teachers working on their curriculum design. It is infiltrating everything that we do. So in my heart, we will see it. And as far as the process, Bob?
And let me add that your vote on changing the 8-period middle school teaching schedule for the fall of 2010 was a big move in that direction. And on June 16th, when you approved the mission, vision, and learning principles, will be a big decision. However, between then, this board will be asked to approve an elementary technology change. You're trying to remove the computer labs, which are nice, but we've discovered that by having computers in the classroom handy every minute of the day, it will better impact student learning. So at some time between now and June, we will be asking you to make a vote that beginning in the fall of 2010, we will start working our way through 18 elementary schools, working with the teachers and principals, taking away the computer lab, but within that building, immediately giving them computers in their classrooms to meet those needs. That's going to take us a while to work through 18 buildings, but once you make that vote, then things will be happening in the classroom which help the teacher and impact the student as far as learning. So there'll be concrete things coming this year and again in the future.
If I can just
Yeah.
say one more thing, I don't want my comments to be deemed as negative.
No.
And I want to reemphasize what I said before when I attended the technology conference, which was our teachers were so energized, engaged. There was so much synergy going on in the work session.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was fabulous. But I know it's hard to expect this.
It's-
So
I knew you were gonna come up
I know
there.
you can do it. I just
I know what she's going to say, so you ready?
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
want
do
to
it.
say something
Okay.
before she, okay, go ahead, go ahead.
How are we going to get there?
What was really interesting about when Dr. Wiggins first came to the steering committee, we saw examples of other districts that had made these sweeping changes throughout their district. And it goes down to changing the teacher evaluations, changing their administrator evaluations, changing their report cards, you name it. I mean, it's down to everything. And I think that's the only way this is going to work.
Right. And that, yeah, it's
I
moving up.
remember seeing a lesson plan in Liz's book
Yes.
last week.
Yes.
Different
That's a
kinds
great
of lesson
example.
plans.
Right. And then to Dee and what, I knew you were going to come up here. As you work yourself up the house, things have to change as a result of mission. And one thing we keep hearing about is our evaluation model. Is that our evaluation model doesn't fit anymore the way that we are beginning to teach. So that's another example of how as we move up, it will impact business as usual. And then I also do want to say I think we have to get more teachers involved. And, you know, we are going to move forward into phase 2, and we'll put out another all-call. We are going to have to shuffle up our subcommittees a little bit. When we bring forward to you all the needs that have been identified, some things might fall by the wayside, but others might need a whole lot more people, and we'll go back out and we'll say we need more teachers. And we need to get more folks involved and on board. So we'll do that at that level as well.
Just a follow-up question, too. I have an article here from the American School Board Journal, and in that there's a piece about digital textbooks. Has anything been mentioned about that during this process? And if so, where does that stand in the future of the Parkway?
That is a goal 1 and a goal 3 question, or it's coming up out of there, isn't it? Now you can come up. Now you want to come up? Yeah, now she can come up. Because that, I'm going to call up a goal 1 leader. Now she's allowed to come. Oh, yeah.
We're actually, we actually have our own subcommittee right now looking at one-to-one computing. And obviously, and that's at the secondary level. And obviously, you can see down the road that digital textbooks would play a hand in why you would do that. Now, from the academic side, that's at least from the technical side. So we're looking at
We're talking about it, but it needs a lot more conversation. And again, I want to go back to the house. Once the mission, vision, learning principles are there, that next one where it says curriculum and assessment system, we are beginning, you all are about done approving the last cycle, curriculum cycle. You have library, media, and counseling to go this year. We start again in the fall with ComArts. When we start that 6-year cycle of review, it's level 3 and 4. We're going up the house. So you'll be looking at the ComArts curriculum and the assessments, and you'll be looking at common assessments this time, and you'll be bringing them back to mission. And so as we do that is when the question when we get to ComArts, and that'll be an interesting one, what does it mean for a digital textbook? Probably not there. But then when we roll around to social studies, that's when we'll ask very specific questions. What's the state of the online curriculum guide? Because some teachers say it's all there. And do we even need a digital? I mean, will we have what we need linked on the OCG? But in the next 6 years, we're getting feedback right now from committees, and it's split. It's just split. Some people want the book, some people want even we were asked, Stephen, maybe it's not here, to pilot Kindles. And we just had to say, no, not yet. We need to see a little bit. Did you hear him say no? No! But as we go through the next 6-year cycle, that'll be when we start bringing them on or not, and looking at what's out there.
We saw a little bit of that, too. Reading in the Wall Street Journal a few months ago, they're really just starting at the higher education levels now and digitizing textbooks right now, and that kind of works their way down. So we have some time here too. I don't necessarily think the actual traditional textbook companies are ready to produce those. And in the interim, the way people are producing work for curriculum on site, you could argue down the road that you should be able to put something together that would meet the Missouri standards and whatever standards we actually want to get, and have it out there with little or no cost.
It might be the OCG. Seriously. We can link things. But Beth, we heard from the student panel, the middle school panel. Just to remind you, most of our texts now come with a CD and our DVD. And the kids, I was surprised. Well, I use that. I access that. Foreign language is what we kept hearing from the kids. So some of them already, it's a preference, but not all of them. Some of them want the book. So I think that was interesting.
I do think a lot of people, not just kids, but people say, I want the book until they try it the other way.
Oh.
I think you hear that.
I do too.
Right. And I'm not saying that one day everybody's going to love it, but I've heard a lot of people, wanting to give up books until somebody can see those hand or whatever it is. And you think, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I do think a consideration for the board in preparation as we start going through this cycle, I don't think financially we can do both. I don't think we can spend $3 million on social studies text and one-to-one computing. And so that is going to be a challenge for us because, some people say, well, let's do, well, no, it's going to have to be, because that's where the money will come for the kids. To have it digital, you got to have a laptop or something in your classroom that goes back and forth. So it's coming, and it'll be, and again, I got to take it all the way up the house. This is really the best model I've ever seen in my 25 years because it's all connected. And if you go up to evaluation, who you hire, the top, the policy, structures, governance that are required to make all this connect. And that's where policies need to start being reviewed again, and then they need to be strong to support the connections. So, did you, for me?
Well, I was just thinking as you talk about this one-to-one computing, and you start thinking outside the box a little bit on education and how do you keep kids engaged. I'm just wondering about libraries too. Does that change? Does that become something that maybe is more in the classroom? Maybe parts of it or all of it end up in the classroom.
Or, as you'll hear from Carol Conan when she brings her curriculum forward, does what happens in our library media centers change? What we'll be seeing differently. And we really are looking at that, and honestly, I think it's already changing. And what our librarians are doing with our teachers and working collaboratively, and even North Heights Library, I don't know if you've seen it, it's a different feel. It's kids collaborating. It's almost a place to collaborate and to have conversations. Good?
Again, to put the board on their timeline, on May 19th at our public board meeting, Jennifer will come back and update you on the 30 subcommittees and what some of their concepts, topics, and recommendations may be, just to listen and understand that night. Then when you have your board retreat, which is 2 days of public sessions on June 4th and 5th, we'll probably spend 2 or 3 hours working through Project Parkway. Then on June 16th, that night the board begins to act on approving the mission, vision, and learning principles. Short break during the month of July. In August, September, October, and November, publicly a number of times we will discuss at public board meetings the 30 committee options, and we'll have to identify whether you can do things in the fall of 2011, 2012, or put a hold on some items. So things are going to start happening very quickly as we move along.
And I just, again, to thank you all for your support, and also on a personal level for the people behind me who are still here, our goal leaders that are just doing amazing work as well, moving the work forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. 13.01 Budget Workshop.
Evening. Sit up here for just a second. Sorry for the delay there. Good evening, President Davis, members of the board, Dr. Melito, and Mrs. Calanda. Tonight is our first workshop discussing the 2010-11 budget. You know, we've survived the financial crisis, but there's still some fallout from the crisis that is the district tightening its belt. This is a report on kind of where we stand currently, both from revenue, what we're seeing for revenue for 2010, 2011, and also from an expense standpoint. Over the next, here's several dates that we have. Obviously, our next board meeting will have the budget assumptions that we present this evening. There aren't a lot of them out there. There's still a lot of open-ended items. We also will come back with a second workshop on April 21st, and then we'll have the formal board adoption of next year's budget June 16th. I always like to remind everyone the graciousness of the patrons of this district voting Prop R, and it really allowed us to do a lot of things. It supported lower class sizes at all the schools. It strengthened the student support programs, upgraded our textbook, our curriculum cycles, equipment, and technology. And without that, a lot of the stuff that we have going on in Parkway right now couldn't be possible. We also want to continue, and one of the things we always will do is look at everything within the expense, from an expense standpoint, make sure we have operational efficiencies. First off, I'd like to go through straight into the revenue picture. Interestingly enough, we had a surprise last Wednesday, just as I was getting ready to send the report over to Ms. Calanda. so that you guys could review on Friday. Our VIC, which is considered part of the local revenue, but it's actually funded by state proceeds. That they actually do all the funding for VIC. Announced that they are projecting a lower per pupil revenue for the next year in the neighborhood of it moved from $9,000 down to $7,500, which is a reduction of about $2.2 million. So that surprise right here, it is in the, I changed everything, and you can see that, and it is reflective of that particular change. So we haven't had a chance to take a look at the expense side and see what we can do to help offset that.
Wes, is that just because, I mean, how did they come to that decision to go from 9,000 to 7,500?
Yeah, you know, I think I think they're using some of the one of the things that you see, and it's a great question. You've seen the estimates that you have from the state. I mean, it's anywhere between 6 and 10% down for the year as far as their taxes or all their proceeds are coming in. One of the things that's really not going to be touched is your basic formula money. One of the things that I think when they signed off on the stimulus package last year, that they would not touch that. They could alter what's going on in the future because the current funding formula isn't fully funded yet. But our portion of that, being a held harmless district, is fully funded. So we wouldn't see anything from that aspect of it. Really, the only other thing is, and I would guess is it's a general revenue piece. We'll get more information on that, I think, Friday when we actually are sitting there with the legislative luncheon. I hate to speculate on that, but I think David's a very sharp guy, and he probably has looked at that and looked at the potential for that. So he's just, making everyone be aware that it could drop that amount. I mean, I'm not sold on that it will drop that significantly, but he is the expert, and it's kind of hard not to go against his advice on when we're looking at it from a budgetary standpoint.
And this happened a few years ago.
Yes.
With this revenue, was it maybe 5 years ago?
Yeah.
That happened.
Basically, what happens is
Not the first time.
the person in charge of the VIC program gives you their best estimate at the beginning of the school year, and this year, Bruce Ellerman thought it would be $9,000 per pupil. But as he sees the state going through a very economic challenging time, he's trying to forewarn all the school districts, saying he may have to drop it down now to $7,500 per student, which means Parkway, you could have come up $2.2 million short this year. So I think he's just trying to be upfront with you. He gave you an estimate in August. He's coming back saying the economy is still bad. I'm trying to give you a second estimate so you can begin covering your thoughts. So.
And we have had a switch with Bruce Ellerman, former CFO here at Parkway, and he was at Choice Corp, or the big corporation. He has retired, and David Glasgow, the former CFO at Rockwood, has taken his place. And that might factor into it, but there's some real information behind that. We really, we saw a lot of, since October, we've been in a lot of meetings listening to how the state of the state, and I think you've seen some of the articles in, in the paper and things like that about where we stand in comparison to last year, both from an income tax piece and also from the sales tax that we have reduced quite drastically. One of the other things that I do want to let the board know, this does include, if you remember, with SB 711, we had to set our tax rate prior to getting our final BOE numbers. Well, it fell quite considerably, and there was $3.5 million sitting out there that we will project to lose just because of that particular piece. This does project right now moving our tax rate back to that level, back to our level, but doesn't capture that extra $3.5 million. That will give us an option if you look at it. I don't want to. It's very difficult to do that. It's already going to be difficult in a non-reassessment year to people forget things, even if they've been educated on that in the past, that we're going to have to change our tax rate, changing it even more than what we have. I don't know if that's what we need to do, but I think we can't discard that option, and that's something that we will present later on. And as we get numbers and get it finalized, it's something that we want to make sure that we don't take off the table at this point, but also we understand the economic circumstances might not dictate allowing us to move that up and recoup the $3.5 million we lost last fall. And with the exception of that, I don't see any other. And the one thing before I forget, from a revenue standpoint, I think this is a pretty good number. I think that VIC number was probably the last number we had. Most of that's really, if you look at it, we've already got projections on transportation embedded in there, and the sales tax. We get that from DESE on a monthly basis, and we change our revenue assumptions based on whatever the numbers DESE gives us in our monthly memo. So this is where it is. And also you see, I think one big piece that you see and you notice that there is a reduction from federal. We're expecting with the stimulus that was a one-time effect that you see with our projections on our federal revenue, and that it'll go back down to normal without any action or anything that might come down from the feds at this point in time. And as we look on the other side of this, which is the expense side, one of the things I want to make sure that everyone is aware of, that we're working down the current schedule. We are currently in negotiations with the teachers, but I have placed in there, this is the assumption that we're working down and across our current teacher schedule. We also have the 0.5% requirement in benefits that we have for retirement for teachers, and there's also an 0.8% increase on the non-certified side that we're required to increase. You see that we did reduce program budgets. We actually reduced those 5%, and the rest of the difference is actually one-time expenditures. So we've already tightened the belt from that aspect in anticipation of actually before this, and that was actually intended to help fund our middle school model. And this also does include the middle school model changes that we have, and a couple of others that we'll see in a couple of slides. And then also,
the assumption regarding benefits,
yeah,
we had kind of a window of savings there with the change to the single.
Yeah, and part of that is
is that included in this estimate, or are you back on the 8 to 12%?
No. This is, you know what? That's actually further back. I think we still can expect our benefits to be in line. You see the number actually is where it is. We have looked at that a little bit and whittled it down. We're coming in a little bit ahead of the game, and then we're projecting an increase on top of that. So using our actual, so that's where that number is and why we've adjusted it accordingly. So and then again, the last point I wanted to make is you see the buildings. We try to keep that as under the circumstances, keep it as still as possible. That's the money we invest in the buildings, and all the schools use that for supplies and whatever for student learning. I think it's important that we try to keep it in aggregate. It might change from a per pupil standpoint, but to keep that money invested in the schools, it's very important. They use it for a lot of different things, a lot of good things for student learning. So. As I always do the first budget cycle, I always like to remind this is what we voted for in Prop R. Nothing's changed from the student-teacher ratios at the elementary. We're still using the current ratios to do that. One thing that we'll want to do, we'll want to watch open enrollment. One of the things that's going to come down the pike during this legislative session, and the board might want to take a look at making sure that all of our policies are in place, because I think that there will be a policy implication if there's not something set up in that aspect of it. But we'll have to watch that definitely. I think that's one of the big things from education that's coming from the General Assembly. And we also, the secondary has been in place for a couple of years as well. This is the basic teacher ratio that we use to make sure that the middle school and the high schools have the appropriate teachers. And then we actually add 10 at the middle school and 14 on top for support staff. So. FTE changes, there's not many right now. The first one you've actually looked at and voted on in the middle school. It's to make sure that we actually put in what was talked about by Desi at our last board meeting. In addition to that, mosaics, we've had an increase in applications for that, and the expansion of moving it into, Bobby can help me, is it middle school and high school?
West Middle, yes.
Yeah, so we're gonna need 3 FTE to help fill the increase in the qualified kids applying for mosaics. And then also the last piece is the A+ coordinators. We want to do a half FTE at each particular high school. Under the current economic conditions, there's a lot of opportunity that this A+ program has for kids to go on to secondary education. And we feel it important that we instill this and start going in that direction to help the kids that do start getting into become freshmen and stuff, and moving them in the right direction to make sure that they have the appropriate classes so that they meet the criteria. So it's something that we, obviously you can see that these are just absolutely necessary things and nothing more. So obviously, from a support and administrative staff, we're not increasing anything, and we could currently continue as things arise to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of staffing to support what we have in the classroom and make those changes accordingly. Our operating, just an FYI, with our current things, this is our general requirements and what we need to actually operate for the second half of the year. The 28.63 and the 8.06 million are basically our 2 board-approved minimum fund balances we need for June 30th, because remind the board that we get very little revenue in the second half of the year, and we need to make sure that we pay the bills until December 15th when we start receiving our property taxes. Salary adjustments, CWA is currently under contract. Nurses are as well. CWA will be 2.4% next year. Nurses are tied to the teachers' agreement that we do work out this year, and obviously in my assumptions I use that. And then and one of the other things is just to let the board know, I did put 2.5% currently in there for all other staff, administrators, and other support staff. Fringe benefits, most of these numbers still persist with the lag. Going into it, you can see that the 0.5% in there to 14% is what we're going to be doing for certified, and 6.675% for non-certified. Typically, health and benefits have been increasing 8 to 10%, but with our consolidation, we've been able to hold expenses in place. We should be able to do it for this. We're doing it for this calendar year, and we will reevaluate probably September, November. But we do have those estimate increases. If we do increase it, it probably won't be anything more than 5%. But obviously, we have some time to look at that and make decisions at that point in time. These are just the school building allocations per pupil. It's just the numbers we're using. You can see the slight reduction in elementary and everything else staying the same. And we adjust those based on the student population. And one of the things we had the 5%, that was specifically with the middle school thing in mind. One of the other things I did forget to say as far as expenses are concerned, we did not include, we always have a placeholder for our 25 to 30 early retirement piece, but as of the publishing date, which was a week ago, and we were still under those projections, so it did not include the 31 to 41 time benefit that we had in there. So I did forget I knew there was one thing I was forgetting. That was just to let you know that number could change, the expense side could change to the downside depending on the numbers that we do see. And that particular thing is the expiration on both of those are January 22nd. So we'll see the numbers coming in over the next week. I think people, understandably, with such a big decision, try to wait in the last couple of weeks to make those decisions, and rightfully so. Bond issue is still being compiled. We'll see. We'll get that, and in the second budget, we'll have a report for you on the actual things we're going to be doing during the summer. You know some of them, the large ones, like over here at Central High, and a couple of others. But we'll update on what is actually getting done during the summer with the bond issues, the bond issue money that we have. Here's some of the known things that we have, and it's all revenue related. It's the thing that's kind of holding us, where we are and trying to, hold on tight. Overnight interest rates, which we used to, back in the glory days, we were making 5% on that, and what we had in our fund balances and making, probably about $2.5–3 million. Well, this is virtually to nothing. As a matter of fact, Maureen was telling me 0.04% for 3 months and 4 months a quarter. It's really, it is really low right now. So, and that's lower than it was last year. And last year, I think we're maybe between 0.5% and 1%, somewhere in there. Sales tax revenues, you've seen that also in the news. It's down probably 6 to 10%, depending on the numbers you see. All both the state income taxes are also in reduction. I mean, you can see that also from just from the 10% unemployment, and then also dividend income being reduced and things like that. So, and then again, federal stimulus is a one-time piece, reduction in VIC, and then property tax stagnation. We don't have a lot of property tax, so for foreseeable future, revenue looks to be where it's going to stand and for a couple of years. We have to have a conservative financial approach. Obviously, we have to look at the economic crisis. It looks like it's close to a bottom, we hope, and it'll be a while before. One of the real realities is, and one of the things that school is really tied to is construction spending, and it's going to be a while before it improves. It probably, 2 to 3 years, I would guess, on an optimistic side. The capital plan, again, will be available at the second budget workshop. And with that, any further discussion? I think that you can see we really don't have a lot of the things that we do need, that we've implemented, we've put in place. Obviously, the revenue surprise last week has not given us time to really take a look at the budget, and as we get into April, we'll have a better, we'll have that sized out a lot better for us, and we'll work toward making solutions to bridge the gap between the expenses and revenue that we have right now. Yes.
Wes, how's our bond issue money holding up? Are our projects coming in according to the budget?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we've had the only one thing, just standing outside here, I think is the only thing that I think I can remember that might have gotten over budget a little bit, but for the most part. Yeah, I think that's right. As far as that goes, that's the other piece of it. But yeah, they're holding up very well as we go. So. Absolutely. And we have 53 million. That we have currently that we've actually placed. So we have 34 million we can replace in a couple of years. There were some reasons why we didn't. Yeah, obviously, I don't think the climate was the best in the world, but fortunately for us, we with the AAA rating, which is very important in the climate that we saw last year, we could do that. And then there's also some caveats. You have to spend the money in a certain period of time where you risk arbitrage, and you might pay extra money if you don't have it spent. So it makes more sense for us to do it in 2 issues. So, but no, I think we'll be able to do most everything, and it still seems to be on target. Okay.
Wes, where do we stand, or if you could recap, maybe I missed it, receiving any stimulus funds, and if so, how much?
Oh, sure. Again, it's always funny where it's coming from. We indirectly get it from SSD through the IDEA funds. They they had a wish list, and we were supposed to keep track of it. And I can't remember the numbers from that. Do you remember that? Do you remember the number that we ended up with from FFD from the stimulus? Total dollars? Yeah. Well, no, for the era money. And then they did, so we received, I think it was probably in the neighborhood of like $200,000 is what we received indirectly from them. They actually have to pay the bills because of the way the era is set up, but they have put stuff, whether it's devices in some of the buildings, and in like the EIS, they were able to increase the funding for EIS to help us with the intervening at the kindergarten level. And then there's Title I, and Title I actually comes through the VIC program. So, specifically, and that was actually that comes directly to us, though, the way the funding is. So we keep track of that and do that. So really, when it comes down to it, it's going to be between $800,000 and $1 million by the end of it. We were really pretty close to where we went our estimate. Our district is. The state would tell you we have more than that too, to be honest with you. So if you hear that, part of the, before I finish, the last piece of that is there are certain pieces of the basic formula that the state considers stimulus money, and we have to report that as such. But really, it was just a budget shortfall gap, where we were getting it, and that's basically laying over it. We don't see that as any stimulus. It's just basically keeping the money whole. And I hate to say, I think that's what, it's a common theme that you've heard, I'm sure, but that's basically the truth when it came to the money that went to the basic formula. So,
kind of like gambling money.
Yeah, exactly.
Wes, the VIC number, the 9,000, was it 9,090?
It was, somewhere in the neighborhood, 9,090. Yeah.
That's still a projection, or that's what they're going to pay us?
I think that's a projection right now. Yeah, with the way the General Assembly is still early in session, and David's using probably a best guess as to where it is, and I think he'll probably refine that as we get closer, obviously, changing it one way or the other. I don't think it's going to go down. I think he gave us worst case scenario. I mean, it's either that number or maybe a little bit better. But as we go through the legislative session, I think you'll see the big theme coming in is they're going to have to look where they can reduce the budget. I mean, there's no question about it. They have a real issue there. And I don't want to say that their hands are tied, but the basic formula is a good portion of their budget. And I think from our understanding there were some caveats in the original stimulus plan where they can't really do anything with that. So they're going to have to look elsewhere to cut. So there's other things, what they consider general revenue pieces that will be looked to be reduced. And I think maybe that VIC might be part of that. So.
And maybe this is more of a question for Dr. Melito, but as we start to absorb what that means to us financially, do we need to reassess our participation in VIC, or is that drop in reimbursement significant enough that it would cause us to question the number of students that we take through that program?
Well, I think what I would like to say to the board, yes, we need to watch that and everything else. The bottom line that you're hearing tonight, for the next 4 months, you must be conservative and ask questions. When the question is, do we have money already budgeted for that item, such as Prop S for the $20 million this summer? As long as the project comes in at budget under, you say, yes, I will approve it. Number 2, we're going to bring to you computers. Very expensive proposition. But 4 years ago, we put $4 million away and said we're going to save it, and when the board authorizes elementary computers, that's when you will vote yes. So you ask the question, do you still have the $4 million? The answer is yes. Then you can say yes on your vote. But new initiatives that come your way, that were not in our planning or within our budget, there's no budget for it, you're going to say, where's the money coming from? And they say, I don't have it. And the answer is, it must be tabled or delayed. We need to slow things down for 4 months until April to get a feel what's happening in the state of Missouri as well as in Parkway. And you may have to wait almost until June to make some of these decisions. And that won't be pleasant, but you're going to have to, because we just don't know what the bottom line is for Parkway until we get through February, March, April, and May. And we may end up in May, and this is such a large district, with 2 or 3 or 4 million that was unspent. That makes up and then allows you to come back and do certain initiatives to improve our learning. The VIC program is very upsetting to me because we planned on so many students. We were told $9,000 per child. In Parkway, it costs about $10,700, so we're coming up short. I'm hoping David at the end of the year can come back up and give all the schools more money, hopefully.
And it's still, from an aggregate standpoint, I believe it's still roughly $10 million that we do receive in total from the VIC program, even with that reduction. I think it was around, I'd go back and get the number to get specific, but I think it was around 12 when we had that 9,000 number in, and it comes down and was reduced to 10.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I realize that our per student cost is some combination of fixed expenses and variable expenses, and I think we just need to be cognizant of what that reduction in funding for VIC does, and factor that into how we approach our participation going forward. So that's keep an eye on that.
Definitely will.
Sometimes it benefits us to be a whole harmless district, and at these times it does.
Even though,
but I think
that's right.
Overall, I'm expecting schools that aren't, districts that aren't.
They're going to be hurt. They're going to be hurt pretty, because I think even with they have their basic formula might be held, but obviously they were probably planning with those increases for future. I think there was 3 or 4 more years of proration to build into the new funding formula. I've seen some things out there to extend it a year, in some capacity or whatever. So obviously that money's not going to be there for them. So yeah, they're going to have to do something. When you look at it, I think you always share the number of 50%, but it's around 50% of the total state budget is in education. And with a, what was it, $600 million, I think if I remember correctly, so I think that's the real number that we were seeing tossed around. I think they had budget cuts, and I still think they have $200 million left to look at. That's going to be very difficult for the General Assembly to make some decisions as they get through this session. So.
Can we go back to Vic for a minute?
Sure.
Can you explain, I don't understand how the transportation is part of the 7,500?
That's included. That's absolutely right.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
Hearing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Just one clarification. How many times has your department got the certificate of excellence?
Oh, yeah, I should publicly, thanks for reminding me. We usually don't get it till like May or June, but the school business officials have award the certificate of excellence in financial reporting, and it's for our annual report. And yearly, Maureen will send it in. Well, we just received it actually yesterday for the 8th consecutive year, and they do a wonderful job of keeping the finances straight for the district. And again, I really appreciate her efforts. And they do all the hard work between Maureen, also Kate Chesser, and then a couple of other staff members from Maureen's department. Compile the report and put it in such a great detailed format and in the appropriate format for people to read that all those number crunchers just love it. So obviously doing that is a big achievement, and we're very proud of that award we get every year.
I tried to give her a little help there and just reminded her credits by the windows, debits by the door.
Exactly. I saw that. I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's, again, that's the staff in finance, really. They do a really hard, I mean, that's a credit to them. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. 14.0 policy review. This evening we have 13 policies up for first review. Are there any that you'd like to review or ask questions about? Okay, if there are no questions, those will be moved to the consent agenda for the January 27th board meeting. 15.0 call for special meetings, January 25th, 27th, and 28th, 2010. I have a motion and second, please, to call for a special meeting on Monday, January 25th, 2010, at 7 p.m. at Central High School for the purpose of conducting a Project Parkway all-committee meeting, and on Wednesday and Thursday, January 27th and 28th, 2010, at 8 a.m. at ISC for the purpose of conducting a Project Parkway steering committee meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 16.0 call for closed meetings, January 27th and 30th and February 8th, 2010. I have a motion and second, please, to call for a closed meeting, including any record or vote, on Wednesday, January 27th, 2010, at 6:30 p.m. and or immediately following the regular meeting at Central Middle School for the purpose of considering 1, legal action, causes of action or litigation involving the district and any confidential or privileged communications between the district and its representatives and its attorneys, 610.021.1. 2, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees by the district when the personal information about the employees discussed or reported, 610.021.3. 3, preparations on behalf of the district or its representatives for negotiations with employee groups, including any discussion or work product, 610.021.9. 4, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, and records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment, 610.021.13. And on Saturday, January 30th, 2010, at 8 a.m. at Central Middle School for the purpose of considering 3, preparations on behalf of the district or its representative for negotiations with employee groups, including any discussion of work product, 610.021.9. And on Monday, February 8th, 2010, at 7:30 a.m. at the Administration Building for the purpose of considering 3, preparations on behalf of the district or its representative for negotiations with employee groups, including any discussion of work product, 610.021.9.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Klein.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Could I have a motion and second, please, to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for your attendance this evening. At this time, we'll now adjourn to closed session.